Angela Levin,
Hello.
I have missed you.
Likewise, I've missed you, Dan.
It's been a long time since our last conversation.
It seemed a very, very long time, actually.
Yeah.
I was used to seeing you very regularly, and it was a very long time. So I'm very pleased to be here.
Well, thank you for being being here on Outspoken. And obviously, there's lots of big royal news, and that's what we love because the thing about both of us is that we're not just commentators, we're journalists. We speak to the insiders, we know what's going on. And for some folk who maybe didn't watch us on GB News, Angela's story is particularly fascinating because you actually were the official biographer of Prince Harry. You got to know the guy, you interviewed him. He chose you, really, to be the journalist who he became closest to. So you have a particularly fascinating insight into what's gone on.
Yeah, it's very interesting, actually, because the thing I learned from that is to be patient. If you're dealing with the royal family and their staff, that's what you have to be very, very patient. They don't make a decision quickly. They don't see you one time after the other. You have to go very, very slowly. Now, I like doing things really fast, so I have to sort of
Me
almost
too.
tie myself down to the ground and keep on. And the thing is not to give up, but to keep on asking nicely. I mean, when I went to see Harry, I went to the royal family. Sorry, when I went to see Harry, I went to discuss whether it would be okay, and I was put on a sort of 6 level gradation, whereas the first one people sort of taught me to the ground, and then I came back, and then again and again and again and again until they said yes, I could go on an engagement with him. I mean, it was fascinating how they wanted, what do you want to do? What's your angle? We've seen you do other things before, but we've got to be very careful. And it's very interesting how that works. And you just have to sit there and not nag them, not push them. I mean, I
Mm.
think if you're used to being a journalist, you want to say, come on now, tell me, get on with it, but you have to be very, very quiet and polite and let them do it at their own course and hope that something called charming moves in and they listen to you and they will do that. Um, I spent 15 months with him
Mm.
together, and I went out to lots and lots of engagements with him, and I could see how the people related to him, how he related to other people. But throughout that, I wanted to have private invitations in the palace. And I asked every so often, and then no chance, no chance, no chance. And I waited another few months and another question, please, do you think I could? Because it'd be really helpful, all that. And eventually I got a phone call saying, what are you doing tomorrow afternoon? I'm always careful on those because you don't have a way of backing out if it's something you don't
It's,
want to do.
it's
So
something awful.
yes. So I said, well, I'm not sure, but I think I might be free. And they said, well, you can come and talk to Prince Harry by us, with him but only for 15 minutes. So I thought to myself, well, that's completely useless.
Mm.
They don't even say, hello, how are you? Which way did you come here? Tube, taxi, So I thought, should I not bother? Should I go? And the editor of the book would have thought I was ridiculous, coming with nothing, having said, I'm so excited, I've got to see the prince. And I thought, well, what I've got to do is to give him a question. My first question's got to be so powerful that he will then realize that I don't want to listen to rubbish, that I'm really interested in something very important.
So, what did you ask?
So I said to him, can I ask you this question to start with? I said, yeah. I said, do you use going to see all the people you go when you're on engagement, soldiers who are wounded, young children who have had terribly difficult lives? Do you try to work through your own mental health issues while you're doing that? Now, this is before he'd met Meghan and before the whole mental health thing was really shining. So I asked him that, and he went silent for what seemed like 2 hours, but it was probably just a few minutes. I thought, he's going to throw me out, he's going to throw me out. And he didn't. And he said, well, you know, you're absolutely right. And the conversation went on from there. Very relaxed, very easy. And people kept coming and saying, look, there's somebody downstairs. No, it's fine, it's no fine. So I was there for an hour and a half. And then I went back twice. So it was worth that. But you have to make these judgments and think, well, 15 minutes, I'm not going to bother with that. But it worked very well. It worked very well. And that was when he suddenly said, I want to tell you something. Yeah, sure. And he said they should never have let William and I walk behind our mother's when she died.
The coffin.
The coffin.
The funeral.
Never walk behind the coffin on the way to a funeral, exactly. And that went whizzing around the world because...
Well, yes, it was an international sensation, that story. Yeah. You became known as a result of that as the journalist who knows Prince Harry best. And by all accounts, he was happy with the book. He liked you a lot. So what happened? Because now, alongside me and Piers Morgan and Rebecca Brooks, you're one of the journalists who he targets with negativity.
Well, I never read it, so thanks for telling me. I think he's obviously very cross because he doesn't want me to say things now, which I recognize as something that's completely different from the Harry I knew. And so I don't let that negativity come into me. I just say what I think. And that's it. If he's now furious with me, then that's fair enough. But I have my own feelings and I just say them.
What would you say if you saw Harry now? Because you had that personal relationship with him.
I don't think that he would come near me, actually. If I
He's
saw
quite
him,
gutless, isn't he?
well, I don't know.
He's a bit like a keyboard warrior. He's good at saying nasty things in books or to the media, not so much to people's faces.
If he'd waved at me, I would rave back and smiled and we'd see. But I think there's one thing, it's very easy just to attack someone. But on the other hand, it's quite difficult to do it to their face. So I don't know. I think it's up to him. I wouldn't even imagine how he would be. He's entitled to be what he likes, just as I am entitled to say what I think. And luckily, I've got good insight. I think that's why I've done quite well. And I can read him. You do if you've been with somebody for quite a long time.
Well, of course. And by the way, when Harry tries to say that you've made a living off him, he's completely wrong. Your new biography of Queen Camilla was another bestseller, had huge revelations, and you have, and some people don't know this, you have a track record as being one of the most famous interviewers on Fleet Street for decades before you had anything to do with Harry. So I think that criticism is particularly unfair. But what do you think changed with Harry? What changed the man that you knew?
Well, it's obvious it's Meghan, isn't it? It's obvious. I was with them when they went on their first engagement, and I was astonished how able she was at talking to people on either side of the road and picking up something they've dropped and giving them something to wear in their hands because it was so cold and they could rub, amazingly kind. And I thought, this is astonishing. This is not normal that somebody, they weren't married yet, could do that. It's quite extraordinary. Gosh. And then they went indoors, various buildings, to talk to the heads of various charities that he was involved with. And Meghan did, for the first time, what she's not stopped doing since, is pushing him out the way and going forward first. And I thought, oh, hell, this is really, really difficult. Nobody I could imagine would do that first round. Who was she? Nothing really without him. And he let her go in front, but that was the beginning of a downfall, really, because
So you could see her wanting to be the leading lady.
She was the leading lady. She pushed him out the way. He was the leading lady, and he let her do that. And I think that the gentlemen and women who were up there, shaking a hand, had no idea really what to say. If you go somewhere where you don't know the people, you come from a different country, you find a whole different way of running lives when you're a member of the royal family. You sit back and you watch. You do that in any company. You don't go in and say, I'm going to be the chairman of this straight away. You learn. You have to watch, you have to be there. I think if she'd hung around for 2 years and really listened and not try to push in front of Catherine and William and not try and make it her own with the clothes in the wrong colour and all that, it might sound petty, but it's very important. Once you've got that, you could say, I've got some good ideas. Why don't I ... would you mind if I did ... You've got lots of opportunities, but nobody who's got sound common sense would actually rush in and take it all on board.
But Angela, here's the thing. And look, tell me if you disagree. But she never wanted it to work, did she? This was a plan. She came in looking for examples of racism, looking for examples of bad treatment, because, like you, I was covering her entire time in the royal family. And these courtiers who she has criticized on such an international level, they bent over backwards for her. They wanted her to be happy. They wanted her to follow her passions. They didn't even ask her to give up acting. So I believe this was a plan.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, the Queen did everything possible. She let her have top aides to help her. And she did say that she could carry on acting if she wanted to. But I think the more you think about it in retrospect, the more you see that whatever happened, she wasn't going to stay there. She was going to take Harry away because she's got what she wanted. She's got a title and she would have lots of money, but he hasn't got enough money for her. She's a bit upset about that.
She likes the billionaires, doesn't she? She wanted the big palace. She was so embarrassed, Angela, so embarrassed to have Oprah into that little palace at Kensington, the most prestigious address in London. I mean, where does she get off? Seriously. Angela, is the royal family racist in any way?
No, they're not racist anyway. And they're not. I mean, you can see the way they shake hands, where they smile, where they talk. It's not patronizing. It's a nonsense, actually. It's really cruel. But it's the one thing that you can grab on and you can maneuver from there. I've never seen anything remotely bad or bad behavior when they were talking to people of colour.
The Sussex Squad. So I revealed a big investigation last week into what has been going on with this gang of internet trolls, which Harry and Meghan are at the forefront of, and their friends, their allies like Christopher Boozy and Omid Scobie are directly involved with. Why on earth, Angela, given they claim to be so opposed to internet trolling and disinformation online, why on earth have Harry and Meghan not condemned or disassociated themselves from the Sussex Squad?
Well, I think they have one very important rule, and that they are hypocrites, and what they tell us to do doesn't apply to them because they're so grand. I think that's as simple as that. So they can behave in any way they like because they are who they are. And I think it's very faulty because now I read what you have discovered and, what one felt even before that, that they don't say no. I mean, they pretend, oh, we don't know where they are, we don't know how to get in touch. But as far as Bosie is concerned, he was in the Netflix.
Yeah. And Meghan had paid him previously. So there's a clear connection between the two of them.
Yes, I mean, he was pretty ghastly to me as well. I mean,
Well, you've been targeted by the Sussex Squad time and again.
yes, and at one point in Newsweek, he said that he'd investigated me very thoroughly, and he had discovered that all my friends were very right-wing, and I only associated with Nazis. Now, considering I'm Jewish and an active
That's
Jew,
appalling.
I, I wouldn't even, I would run a mile from that. And it was very difficult for me, but I kept quiet because I think the best way is not giving the publicity that they wanted. But it was very difficult for me for some months because it was a terrible thing to say. And he had absolutely no evidence. It was just a huge lie. And that's very painful. But I decided that, yeah, to be quiet about it at the time.
No, and obviously it's taken me a long time to speak out about the Sussex Squad. I've known about their tactics for a long time. But after what happened to me, and then seeing Harry and Meghan on the world stage, constantly talking about wanting social networks to crack down on trolling and crack down on disinformation. Well, Angela, my investigation shows that the Sussex Squad are actually the biggest purveyors of disinformation, the biggest spreaders of trolling of the internet age. They're the worst, nastiest group online.
It's absolutely astonishing. I was astonished when I read it. Except there's a sort of part of it when you realize that they are determined to win, determined to
Yes,
get
to
rid
bring
of.
down their enemies. And
Yeah.
you are now one of the enemies.
Oh,
And I
God.
am one of the enemies.
I
And so
don't.
is Piers
I
Morgan.
like to think more they want to bring down the royal family. I don't want it directly at me, it may be right, but bring down the royal family, get rid of the press, no more newspapers,
Yes.
and all that. Control it. So that's his
Mm.
thing that he wants to do forever. To get control of it. As he's hundreds, thousands of miles away, it doesn't make any sense. And he's keeping on going back and back and back to court. The last one, cost that which he lost, was £500,000. It cost us, the taxpayer.
Yes, in his battle with the Home Office. No, he's obsessed. He's obsessed, and it's an unhealthy obsession. And he's on the internet himself. He hides behind fake profiles himself. So the whole thing is very, very ironic. You've just said something, though, which is actually a far more critical point, and I want to delve into it more with you because my understanding is the same as you. This is actually bigger than the media. He wants to help bring down the British royal family and the Commonwealth. That's an extraordinary situation for someone who is fifth in line to the throne, for someone whose father is king, whose brother is the next king. What is it, Angela? Is it because he can't have it, he doesn't want anyone else to have it? Or has there been a fundamental change in his belief about whether the monarchy should exist? Because if so, surely he should be giving up those titles that he uses all the time.
I think he believes, and this might surprise you or not, that Meghan is the one who should take over.
As queen.
Yeah.
So he would want to be king.
I don't know. I think he might be an aide, but I think it would. I think he feels he adores her so much, which is very nice. He does what he's told, and he thinks that it was very bad that she wasn't um, questioned about what should be done to make the royal family more up to date. And she said herself that she felt that they should have asked her what should be done rather than Kate, because she is a self-made woman and she's got much more experience. Now, that's a killer sentence.
It really is. I often think about the late Queen, though, and the fact that she entrusted Harry and Meghan with protecting her beloved Commonwealth. And they told her that they had that shared belief. You'll remember the Commonwealth was even stitched into Meghan's wedding dress, for example. And now they use their platform and their media platforms to try and degrade the Commonwealth as some sort of racist, colonial, terrible reflection on Britain. That's Harry directly doing down the late Queen's life work, is it
Yes,
not?
but I think it's Meghan who must encourage him. I find it difficult to think that she doesn't, because he does what he's told. And if she thought it was a very good idea, then he would do it. I mean, she
Is
has
he a smart guy?
destroyed, she's destroyed all around all sorts of things. Her own family, it's only her mother was there at the wedding, all these things. You're not interested in her father. And yet she says compassion is very important to her. It's
Mm.
difficult to understand what she means about that when she won't even do anything now he's very ill. And I think that, you know, the African parks are in a terrible state. And there, Harry was in a very senior position there. Now he's on the the next grade down, and the people who are there in the parks are raping and fighting and humiliating people who just wander in it. And Harry's done nothing. I mean, he was a senior for quite some years, but he's still on the cards of running this. And it's very concerning that he doesn't seem to have done anything. And he jolly well should have done. I don't think that he's too busy to handle that. But he picks and chooses what he wants to do. Um, it's very upsetting, because he was very popular in the Commonwealth and everybody liked him. You know, he was such a lively, happy guy who enjoyed being with people like that. And
Well,
he,
yeah, but his focus now seems to be leaning into others in the Commonwealth who don't believe in the Commonwealth. So, for example, the Jamaican Prime Minister, who is a massive Republican and is against the royal family, and Harry and Meghan are going to spend time with this guy.
yes, he might be against the royal family, but I think he's going to stay in with the group. You know, they all
Yeah.
meet every year. There's over 50 of them that do. And King Charles doesn't mind at all if they want to be independent. He doesn't want to keep them hanging on. He realizes that life moves on and he doesn't mind at all. But he thinks that it's nice if people can talk and share questions about things that bother them. And I think that that's still going to happen. But if it was done, if they went to be with him, to just show how more powerful they are, to show that they can actually smash things, because if they get him on board, it makes it more difficult for the royal family. I think it's dreadful, but I don't know that that's absolutely what they were going to do.
Now, you mentioned King Charles. So hard what he's going through at the moment, Angela, because there's such a cruel irony of someone who waits their entire life for such an important job. He prepared for literally decades to take the throne. And within 18 months, he's struck down with very serious cancer. I mean, you cannot underestimate quite what he's battling at the moment. And of course, we respect his privacy, but it's not good. He is unwell and people are very worried for him. How's he coping?
Well, and he seems to be being very optimistic. There was something in the papers today saying that he's so looking forward to going to Australia. The only thing he's
Wow.
doing is going to cut it down, I think, from 4 weeks to 2 weeks. And he and Camilla will be going there, and everybody feels very positive about it. But I think in any severe illness, when you're in your 70s, you have to be very careful. You don't know which way they're going to go, and how you can manage. So I think actually being positive, is a very important part of it.
Yeah.
But it's I actually cried when I heard the news. I thought it was so sorry. I was so sorry that after all the time, as you said, decade after decade, when he's worked so hard, that he has had such a short shot at the moment. But I hope that he does come back. You possibly don't, but I hope he will manage to get rid of it.
No, of course. I mean, I think he deserves his time on the throne. I think William doesn't want it yet. He isn't ready for it. He felt that he wanted to raise his children before taking on the official role of monarch. So no, I think it's really important actually for the monarchy that Charles is allowed this period on the throne. Camilla, though, is a woman who you obviously know very well. You're her biographer too. This must take a big toll on her because she's having to pick up all this extra slack, do all this extra work. Camilla's health is not particularly good, Angela. She doesn't like talking about this, but she's not in a particularly good way herself. And all of a sudden, because William is out a lot and Catherine is out for obvious reasons, and we all understand that, so much of the responsibility is falling on Camilla, who never expected to be queen.
No, she's a remarkable woman. But what it all goes down to the fact that she really loves Charles,
Yeah.
and she wouldn't want to make him anxious in any sort of way. She'll make him laugh as much as she can, but not to be anxious. So by going and doing some of the engagements which they would have done together, um, in this case, she doesn't do the ones that he would have had that had been very interesting for him, but she would do her side of it and actually make things feel that they're rolling along. And she's had a tremendous reception. There's been people there. One of her feelings is that nobody will turn up. She felt that for their wedding day, which is why she wouldn't get out of bed until the last minute because she didn't think she could face
That's
nobody being there. And if they were there, if they would scream and be nasty. I mean, it's very difficult, very nerve-wracking date to have waited over 35 years to actually marry the one you loved. And I think that she's always quite nervous about that. But so far, there've always been loads of people, and they can feel her warmth, and she's not phony. And I think everybody is very grateful that she's doing that. So there is moving, and I think she smiles a lot. She dresses impeccably, and she's used to being t-shirts and tracksuit trousers before she, got a title. And so she's doing her very best to be there for him. And what she wanted to do was not to be in the spotlight, to be there like a rock, like the late Duke of Edinburgh, and be there for him. And that's what she's done, even though she's gone. It's not all about me. It's about them, and
Mm.
it's about Charles, really, most of all. And that's how she's made it. So she's not trying to grabbing power, nothing to do with that at all, but just making him feel that things are moving forward as he would like them to be.
What do you say to people, and I put myself in this category, Angela, and there's a lot of us who like Camilla, but still find it difficult to completely accept her because of what happened with Diana? Do we just need to move on? If Diana were alive today, would her and Camilla get on?
Um, I think Camilla can make sure she gets on with everyone because she doesn't try and fight things. She doesn't want to be nasty. And the things that were shown in The Crown, I thought were extremely spiteful and not
Mm.
true. I think that there is a time when you have to move on because, I mean, the then Prince Charles was almost forced into this marriage. It was quite obvious that it wasn't
With
going to
Diana.
work. With Diana, yeah,
Mm.
sorry, with Diana.
Mm.
And she had a terrible background in her childhood. She'd seen her father hit her mother, which is why she went away. And she wasn't really looked after. There were the odd nanny or somebody there, and she would bang heads on the wall and just be very, very difficult. And he, at the time, he wanted to get the children because he didn't want his ex-wife to have them, but he wasn't going to do much looking after because men of that time did not. So it was very difficult for them. So they were both very damaged. She used to hear her brother cry at night, but she was too
Mm.
scared to get out of bed to go to him. So you've got all this very negative thing. She wasn't interested in literature. She wasn't, she wanted to dance. She wanted to go to clubs. Stunningly beautiful. She did a huge, good job looking after people with AIDS and all those things that nobody had done before. But I think that actually Charles didn't know how to deal with her. He didn't know how to deal with someone who was screaming and shouting and very ill with all her eating problems. I mean, she had them before she got married. And so I think that it's not fair to blame him because his parents were nagging him to get married and have an heir to the throne. Very important. He was getting older and older, and
Mm.
nobody was right for him. And he couldn't marry Camilla because the heir to the throne had to, at the time,
Mm.
marry a virgin. So he should have married her, but he couldn't at the time because of the rules. I think that's changed now, and I've moved on. I thought Diana was wonderful in certain ways, but his true love has really been Camilla.
Yeah, and people should want that happiness. Now, look, Charles is diagnosed with cancer. It's announced to the world. Harry, potentially in some sort of PR stunt, flies to London overnight without his wife. But then, Angela, the king only spends 15 minutes with him. What does that say about the state of the relationship with Charles and Harry today?
Well, I think for months earlier, years earlier, Harry wanted to come because he was insisting on an apology to Meghan and
Mhm.
how she was treated. And that was the key thing. And he would also ask for money. I don't know if every time, but a lot of the occasions he did. And he's become very demanding. He's not somebody who now wants to compromise and make things right. He's very demanding, very determined. And I think quite wisely that when you've just heard you've got cancer, the last thing you want to do is to have an argument with one of your children. Camilla insisted on being in the room. Harry said he didn't want her there, but she was not. She was not going. He was not going to be with his father on his own. If he really, really wanted to do it, he's not going to whiz in and whiz out. He's not going to get things done very quickly. I've often said previously that if he came to London and he stayed
Mm.
for a few months, then perhaps they could talk things through and find the good things that they felt about each other. But if you are away and you just build up hatred, it's quite easy to do that and not say and have this very sort of negative attitude. But you can't walk in a room and say, are you going to apologize to Meghan? I want to hear you apologize for Meghan. And I think he also had a long list of things that he was very fed up in his book, The Spare. he was complaining about when William had 5 sausages and he had 4, or it was 6 and he had 5. But
Yeah, exactly. And William had the bigger bedroom
he
in
had a
Court
bigger bedroom.
Palace. Oh, we're really feeling sorry for you, Harry.
How
Not.
many people they remember that as if it's written down and kept in their brain? I mean, we all don't feel, you're not invited to the right party, or you're not, somebody snatches thing out of your hand and won't give it back to you. We all have those upsets, but you have to push them away, because otherwise, well, like Harry, you get obsessed with things. And he was loved. He was loved. Meghan was admired when she first came. But as you say, she it was all a plot. But
Well, it
for
was a
Harry,
plot, but we
still
didn't.
don't,
The country backed her. I mean, I
yeah,
forever talk about Angela, the fact that her wedding day to Harry was one of the happiest days in modern British history. There was
yeah.
a celebratory mode, and we were totally embracing of this idea of a mixed race American actress, princess. Actually, no one even cared about her race, despite her wanting to make it such a big deal. She was embraced and loved by the country in the way that she has tried to paint Britain as some sort of backward hellhole is so despicable, given the love that they were shown on that wedding day. It makes me so angry, actually.
I was one of the few presenters of the wedding for CNN, and I started at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I went through till 10 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And the only thing they gave me to eat was a banana, one banana. And I didn't mind. I'm somebody, because I'm small, I need to eat because I've only got a small stomach. But I didn't even realize the time. I was fascinated. It was one
Mm.
of my most happiest days. You could feel it, as you
Yep,
said,
me too.
atmosphere around you. It was just wonderful. And the sunshine and the swans on the, and it was just wonderful.
It was
Absolutely
glorious.
wonderful. And there was nobody there saying, oh, she's from mixed race, or, it was just happy. I was so happy for Harry that he'd found someone.
Yeah, just maybe the wrong person. Now, of course, it was bad enough with Charles for the royal family, but Catherine's cancer diagnosis came as a hammer blow. She is a young woman. She's a beautiful woman at the peak of her powers, at an absolute critical time for the upbringing of her children, who include the future king. There's so much worry about what this young family are now having to go through. And obviously, there's lots of worry about just how bad her cancer is. Obviously, she said she's going to be okay. But for anyone in their early 40s to have to undergo chemotherapy is a really, really terrible thing. How significant was it that William and Catherine didn't even pick up the phone or didn't let Harry and Meghan know about Catherine's diagnosis until all of us did, until she announced it to the world?
Well, there you have their priorities, and he wasn't on the list. Um, and I think, again, it was, if you are unwell, and it's a shock to him, to William. And equally, as you said, it was a terrible shock for herself. The last thing you want is somebody who's going to start making what they want you to do and how they want you to behave, and there will be an awkwardness. And I think that, and quite rightly so, William is absolutely furious about the comments that he made about his wife, that she was exactly the sort of person that they wanted in the palace, who insinuating that she didn't have a big personality, that she did what she was told, that she was deeply boring, and that she was lazy. All those things. You can't expect your brother to accept that when he's with a woman who has not put a foot wrong, who's, you can see, is a wonderful mother, because children don't pretend. If their mother doesn't do much, they go off, or they won't let them hold hands, or they won't whisper and have fun. You can see that she's adored by her children, that she adores them. And she's actually fitted into the royal family with such grace and dignity that it's a dreadful thing to say. And, you know, the thing is, you can't say to him loudly so that everybody hears in the country, you know, what, how dare you say that? He's just been very quiet. And the best way at this time, when she needs calm, she doesn't want stress at all, is actually not letting them know in advance. Because the other thing is, of course, they can't trust him because he's taken sentences and situations and
Yes.
sold them to journalists or to make another documentary. And he's not having that. And I think Harry's been very rude about William. But the thing is, I think that when you have a partner who you really, really love, and she's helped him to be a very nice father and a very nice husband, because he didn't know what it was like when the way he was brought up. And when you do that, you have to be you can't take it. You just don't want to know about it all. And he's trying to destroy that.
Mm. But Angela, how terrible was it that so many of the people who were putting this intense pressure on Catherine with these despicable rumors and so much criticism over her for photoshopping a photo as if she'd committed some sort of terrible act of treachery when actually she was battling disgusting cancer? How terrible is it that so many of these people are connected to Harry and Meghan? So, for example, Stephen Colbert, the big TV chat show host in the US, who used Catherine's disappearance from public view to spread lots of nasty rumors about William. He's a mate of Harry and Meghan. You know, Harry went on his show to promote his book. It just all felt so nasty, that witch hunt against Catherine.
It was terrible, wasn't it? Heartbreaking, actually. Uh,
Yeah.
and people were being making such revolting comments, actually, about her and the marriage, and coming up with everything they could. I mean, it was a desperation to try and take advantage of the opportunity that she was obviously very ill, because they told us it was a major operation. They didn't just say for an operation, it was a major operation. And take advantage of what's happened and try and wipe her off the list of anybody who's useful or helpful or right for the royal family. And I don't think you can be more cruel than that, actually.
No, it's disgusting. How worried are you about Catherine at the moment?
Well, of course, I'm worried. I think, she's 42, and that's an age which is very happy for a woman, because if you've got a happy marriage, you've got 3 children, you don't need to worry about all that early stuff and being pregnant, because she had very different pregnancies.
Yes.
She's found, she's found what she really likes to do, which is bring up families, helping them so that children learn how to be, so there's not so much difficult problems with children. A marvelous ambition that she's got. And she gets on very well with the royal family. She fits in. You could see that she really loves the king and the king really loves her, and that's a very special relationship. And so I am worried that she can't enjoy that at the moment. And I think that she will get over it. It upsets me hugely, actually, because she deserves everything good, because she's such a nice person and she fits in so well with the royal family. It's not easy, of course not, but she's done very, very well. And I think she's much loved all around the world, and I love her too.
And William needs his queen. He needs her.
Yes,
She's such a big part of him and his success.
yes, I think he needs her totally. She's wise and she's down to earth, and she's also had more experience of life outside, which he hasn't. And he asks her advice. She's not bossy. She's not trying to take the spotlight away.
Hmm.
She's there in the same way that Camilla is to be a huge support. Meanwhile, doing what you want to do yourself by the side. You don't try and take on the same engagement unless they're supposed to go together. You know what I mean? You know, she does different things. And I think that her family all round have been tremendously helpful to him. And, you know, you can't even
Yeah,
imagine what might
she's the
happen.
perfect support act, and we love her so much for that. Of
Yes.
course, Sarah Ferguson, Fergie, the Duchess of York, has also been battling cancer, which it just seems extraordinary, Angela. These three members of the royal family, even though Fergie is not an official member anymore. Andrew, now, look, we've both been very tough on Andrew, the Duke of York, in the past. I'm I'm coming around to a bit of a different way of thinking about him, and I'll explore it more in the months to come. But I think even though he made massive mistakes, he was to a certain extent set up to take the fall for Epstein. Now, that's not to excuse the fact that he went to visit Epstein after his conviction, but there's a lot of murkiness to this story. Is it wrong, Angela, that Prince Andrew is healthy and young and vibrant and wants to work and wants to give back to the community, but is unable to do so at the moment at a time when the stocks in the royal family are really low and
Yeah.
just in terms of numbers?
I think that I haven't got as understanding as you yet, but I do think that he hasn't tried to destroy the royal family. He's quietly disappeared most of the time. And actually, when he was walking in front for just recently, twice he did it, one for the late king in Greece and one for the Easter. And it's actually, I got it afterwards, that the lowest in the royal family go first, whereas the Queen and the most senior ones come last. So I thought it was not quite right to leave it like that. But he enjoyed it, but he didn't go up and shake hands with anybody. He just stayed there. And I think he's trying. And maybe he could get some sort of job. He couldn't do any engagements. He couldn't represent the royal family, but he could look after one area of land or something like that, would give him something to do. But I think that although he might feel that he's been badly treated, he hasn't tried to take it out on anybody.
Yeah, which is on, I guess, shows his honor towards his family, because obviously he's very hurt behind the scenes. Goodness me, Angela Levin, you're the best. I could listen to, no, you are. I could listen to you for hours. Your insight into the royal family is second to none. But I think what it is about you that's really special is your compassion. You understand how these people tick, and you see them as human beings. And I think sometimes, and especially over the past few months with what we saw happen with Catherine, I think sometimes people do forget that these are real people with real emotions, and you just you hold them to account, don't get me wrong, but you treat them with humanity, and I think that's really important.
Oh my goodness. Come again.
Well, yes, you've got to come again,
No,
Angela. You've got to
you're
come
very,
again, because once I launch the Outspoken show, you know, when there's big royal news, our viewers will want to hear from you. So it's such an honor to have you. I
very,
love
very
this
kind
friendship.
of you. Thank you. Very generous. Thank you very much. And lovely to be chatting to you once again.
Thank you, Angela. Oh, I loved that.